Hey guys, it's Josh with the Construction CFO, and today I wanted to show you how to put in place your job cost code. What do we need to use? How do we need to think about it? Why do we think about it that way? There's 1,000 ways to do it. When you download a software that can job cost, you can literally put in tens of thousands of cost code. So what are the parameters? What do we actually need to measure? And why does it even matter? That's what we're going to go over. I'm going to show you exactly how we do it. You can follow this as a guide, or you can do something completely different and disagree. That's totally fine. So we're going to start off with every job cost system has a series of numbers you have to use for job cost code. Some of them are going to be 3 digits just in a row. Some of them are going to have 2 digits and then 2 digits in like different sections. And the one that we use actually uses the second model, and it allows for this to be 5, 5, and 5. So if you think about how many different cost code sections could I have if I had 10,000 code 3 different times, that's a lot of different combinations. So we don't want to do that many. You can make it as granular as possible, but do we really need to track staples in a stapler? That's not going to help move the needle or help you do anything. It's just going to create more work. So we're going to think about it like this. There are 7 or 8 sections per job that we need to think about. We have material, we have subcontractors, we have, what do I normally use? Equipment. We do small tools. Things like impacts, drill bits, usable commodity tools. They're not a material. They're actually something that you need to do the job. And I'll tell you why that matters later on. We have a miscellaneous, a catch-all bucket. I'll explain that one again. Let's explain all of these. We are going to have labor. And this is actually the labor it takes to do the thing, not just anybody that puts a time to a job. Like an estimator or a superintendent, they're not actually building anything. They're just part of the job to do the other parts, the ancillary parts we have to do. And then we get into direct job expense, DJE. And then we have a general conditions. So in my time working for 10 different companies doing job costing, and then also now building it for over 100 different companies, we always have to think about these in buckets. So instead of putting a cost code for, some people like to do this. So you're doing civil work, excavation work. They want to say dirt work. And then you have material, subcontract, equipment, small tools. All of those is a subcategory. So think of it as like 100 code is excavation, and then 101 is material, 102 is subcontractor, or something like that. That gets really confusing because you might have material, rock, for example, as a civil contractor, and you might use that material on every different phase of the job, all the way down to paving and asphalt. But where do you put that material, and how do we separate it out? So we don't want to think of it like that. I don't like to think of it like that. I like to think of it like you have 100 like different levels of cost codes. So for us, we do 01, 02, 03, 04, 05, 06, 07, 09. I skipped number 8. Don't really have a reason for it. I just do. I think it's a habit from one of the companies I worked at. But think of it like this. So this is your first category. And maybe if you're using this 3 decimal code, we're just going to call this 100, 200, etc. I'll erase that because I want to use this to explain the rest. That's fun. Okay, so then we get to the second code. This is going to be types of material, types of subcontractors. And that makes more sense. If I'm going to buy rock, I'm going to have 01 rock. I'm going to write this really small, so I'm sorry if you can't see it. 02, that's going to be concrete structures. 03 is going to be, what's another thing? PVC or utility piping or whatever that is. And then I always put a 98 code for taxes and a 99 code for miscellaneous. And you're not going to have 100 codes as a civil contractor. I don't care how big you get, you're not going to have 100 codes. And it's also not worth tracking. Think of it like this. If the superintendent on the job has to meet with your accounting team and bookkeeping team to actually break this down to get to, well, how much 57 stone did we use for phase A in this parking lot for this parking stall? Yes, you can do that. But is it worth their time to do that? No. So what we really care about is think of it as like a lump sum. On this job, I'm going to add up all of my costs, all 57 stone, or all of my rock material. And I'm going to put on there, it's $500,000 for this. And I'm going to write a purchase order, $500,000 for that. I'm going to track it against it. And if it starts to go over that amount, I'm going to know that there's a problem. Or if it's trending, I'm going to know that. But so that's why we track it like that. Miscellaneous is where we put everything else. Say I have less than $20,000 worth of some kind of material on a job. That's something that's ancillary. Like maybe I'm buying wood for concrete forms. I'm buying staples for a staple gun. That could go under small tools too. Depends on how you want to do it for your company. What other things? Boxes. If I'm doing electrical work, if I'm going to put in boxes in the wall, they are such a small amount, depending on what I'm doing. That's where I'm going to cost code them to. Versus EMT, I'm doing so much EMT or so much wire that I'm going to track that as a big bucket to track against, maybe per floor, because electrical is a little different. But that's how I want to think about these. Same with subcontracts. I'm going to have 01. That's going to be my survey. 02. I put them in the order of how we're going to spend the money as well. It helps to see when you're doing job cost to completes, which we'll get to in another video. I'm going to do a series here on why we do it this way and how it all fits together. But we're going to have 01 for, like in survey, 2 for concrete, 3 for asphalt and paving, 4 for trucking, whatever it is. And then I have a 98 code again for temp labor. If I have to pay a temp agency for labor, that's different than if I have labor myself. So I differentiate the two in those two buckets. And then the 99 code, I want to have a miscellaneous one. Say I have a subcontractor. I had this happen with a civil contractor one time. We had to have a drone, like $800. It's the only time we're ever going to have to get a drone drone contractor for this. But instead of us making its own cost code, it just makes sense. We're going to have a lump sum. That's where I go. Equipment. This one's a little complicated. I understand the premise that some people want to track equipment per phase or per task or whatever they're doing. We had an excavator for 3 days to do this sidewalk and 4 days to do this driveway, that kind of thing. But the way I think about it is, again, like a bucket, like a month bucket. That excavator might be on site for 3 days, but during that 3 days, it's going to do anything that's required. And your superintendent's not going to want to say, well, it did 2 hours of this and 4 hours of that, and then an hour over here. And then it kind of sat around for an hour, and you have to figure out how to job cost that. That's not going to work well. But if I say, I had this piece of equipment, it was owned, it's an owned piece of equipment, so that's our 01 code is owned equipment. It was on this job for a month or for 4 days. I can say, hey, it's $48 a day to go on this job. And I have a bucket that I'm dwindling against. Rented equipment is 02. And that's because I might have the same thing. It's just I want to keep track of what do I own, what am I actually utilizing, and what do I rent, and what am I just getting value out of. I'm going to track 03. That's going to be fuel. I'm going to track 04. That's going to be other fees with my rental, whether that's hazard or whatever else, and so on and so forth. And then always a 99 code, miscellaneous equipment. What might that be? Trash pumps. If I have to go buy one of those or rent one of those, or maybe a UTV or something that's small that it's not equipment to do the job. It's not a rental vehicle. Oh, no one also have like a 05 for trucks. Trucks are a different bucket for superintendents or people like that versus equipment to actually do the work. That's how I break up equipment. Then we look at small tools. I always have just one cost code for that, and that's 99. That's, again, impact drills, saw blades, nails, screws, hard hats, ladders, vests, whatever. At the same time, if you know that you're going to buy something on every job, I have a contractor that does a lot of ground stakes of some kind for survey. Not even survey. It's for erosion control. And they buy a staple gun every 3 projects, and they put it in there as that actual thing. And they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on these things because they do so much of it. So we actually have a broken out section for staple gun in their budget, so we make sure we're tracking it right. And then miscellaneous small tools is its own thing. This bucket for miscellaneous, in general, everything should fall into any of the other buckets. But the way I have that set up for our system is if somebody doesn't know what it goes to, they put it in there. If we ever see a number in that bucket, we know it's a red flag. Let's go fix it. Kind of like people's check with accountant buckets that they have in their general ledger. It's just for a project. So we can at least assign it, but then come back and fix it later. 06 codes, these are labor. So the way you want to build a labor cost code is per month section of work, minimum. So what that looks like for a civil contractor, I'm going to have rough grading, and then, I'm even sure before that, I'm going to have clearing and grubbing. I'm going to have SWIP. I'm going to have rough grading. I'm going to have concrete structures. I'm going to have retention ponds or electrical utilities or water utilities, storm sewer, whatever that is. If I'm doing concrete work, it's going to be slab on deck, building 1, whatever those are. When I'm looking at high rises or multi-floor for electrical, what I always did with, like, say, an apartment complex is you have building 1 is like the 01 code for the second task, and it's 01, and then the third one you put in the floor, the building, or the task type. We only use 2 currently because it gets too complicated. We're not a $300 million electrical company. We don't need to have that many cost codes. But again, think of these as in 1 month blocks, and then you can track against how you're doing, how you're trending. You do a whole month work. If you're 50% done, you have 2 weeks worth of work out of the 4 weeks. Are we ahead of schedule or behind? That's going to be a lot of the point. And what it does is it shows you exactly off of your estimating. And I'm going to show you in the next video how you align these numbers exactly into your estimating process. Because it doesn't do you any good to have material if you're tracking it this way, but you don't do takeoff that way. You just say, oh, I think it's about this much overall for all the aggregate, all of the lump sum something, all the pipe, for example. We want to make sure it's tracked exactly the same so you can see if you're going over budget for the next one. Super important for labor because it helps you catch problems today in maybe a 2-year project. If we're not doing well on underground, we're clearly going to have to try to make it up in the other portion. Otherwise, we're going to just be stuck with a big loss, and we won't even know it until we get there later. But when you track it every month, it gives you time, like you get the data fast enough and you can fix it. DJE, these buckets they're customizable, but these are direct job expenses, things that are required for the contract, but maybe you're not getting paid for specifically to supply it to the job. Things like superintendent. They don't really build the project, right? They plan the work, they bring the people in, they coordinate everything, they go to the meetings, but not 1 hour that they do specifically translates to X amount of work installed in the field. That's what the delineation is between labor and superintendent. Then I have a slot for foreman, depending on how big your company structure is. You want to have a project manager, assistant project manager, BIM, office admin. If there's somebody that's dedicated on site, or maybe they do certified payroll and you want to see, did I estimate enough for certified payroll? Because it takes them 40 hours, but I thought it might only take 10. Those are good things to know. Legal will go into that as a bucket. What other sections do I have in there? Job trailers, connexes. These are things that are needed to do the job. I need to store my material, possibly. Maybe I thought I was going to, but I could do it in the building. But I have to pay for them. But the general contractor is not going to pay me to build these things or to have this on site. It's more something I put in my bid, that the way I do business. And then the last one is general conditions. This is going to be your contingency, your bond, your special insurance if you have to get a very niche one, something like that, or your interest rates. You always track with our clients. We know we have a 10% annualized interest rate and it takes net 60. That's about 1.7% we add to the bid, and we offer the discount. Hey, if you pay us, net 5, you get a 1.7% discount on this work. And that's how you break that down. Again, you can get into levels later. This is like, think of level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1 is the general category. Level 2 is the specific category. And level 3, we use it for different ways, but we use it for change orders. We use it for phases of jobs, floors of buildings. That's just a couple. So let me know what you think. Is this how you do it? Or do you have any other best practices you like to do? And in the next video, again, I'm going to break down how you correlate these specific numbers into your specific estimating process.